Welcome everyone. It's wonderful to have so many of you on the call this morning. Welcome to our Cheshire and Merseyside webinar for 2024, celebrating World Suicide Prevention Day. We're joining with thousands, if not millions of people around the world today to mark this International Day. And it's my delight to welcome you. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the Director of Public Health for St Helens, and I have the Leader Direct role for suicide prevention and mental wellbeing across Cheshire and Merseyside. And it's my delight just to chair this session this morning. There's been a change in tagline or theme for World Suicide Prevention Day. In previous years, it was about creating hope through action. This year, the new focus is around changing the narrative. And it's so important that we start a conversation. And although it's not easy to talk about suicide, we absolutely must talk about it. We must talk about it as individuals. We must talk about it as community members. We must talk about it as members of our organisations. We have to break down barriers and stigma. And we need to make that message out there that we need to talk to others. We need to check in on others and have a conversation and talk about suicide. I'm going to go through keeping for us before we make a start. So we go on to my next slide. Thank you. So you will have noticed that the microphones and cameras are turned off for the moment. That's just so we can really focus on the speakers and everybody can hear well. We've also turned off the chat function as well, just for the time being. And really that's because we want everyone to be able to listen and reflect and to hear what our speakers are saying this morning. We're very privileged that we've got 3 or 4 people who are going to be sharing their own stories. And so we want to really take time to listen this morning. So hence we've turned the chat function off for now, but we will turn it back on towards the end. So during the session, if there's things come up and you want to put them in the chat, hold them for now. And there will be time to share those later when we do our call for action. Just to mention as well that this session is being recorded, and that's again just so it'll be available to share with others, and it'll be put that on our website. And also if you want to come back and check in and listen again, you'll be able to do that because we're recording the session. Just to mention as well that it would be fantastic if you can promote this. Part of changing the narrative and raising awareness is just to talk about suicide as much as we can in the right way. And so please would you share our hashtag suicide prevention CM. That's hashtag suicide prevention CM. So whatever social media platforms you use, please would you help and support by sharing that now and throughout the day. I just wanted to mention as well that we do know that it's not easy to talk about suicide, and we are human beings at the end of the day, and we do have feelings and connections. And so if any of the content today does touch you in any way and you need to take time out to turn your camera off just to walk away and just take that time for self-care, please feel free to do that. Please look after yourself as well during this session. And also one of our key messages around suicide prevention is it's absolutely right to reach out for help and support, and there is help and support available. So if anything from today touches you and you need to talk to someone, we are going to be giving a list of organisations and support that we're going to show those at the end of the webinar. If I can just move on to the agenda. So as you can see, we did the welcome introduction. I'm absolutely delighted. We've got Mike Palmer with us this morning from 3 Dads Walking. We've got Allison Furlong from Alfie's squad. We've got our own lived experience member, Brittney Scott, joining us. And also then we've got Rachel Gilbert, who's very kindly going to read a poem on behalf of the lived experience network. And then we're going to have just some time at the end to kind of talk through our closing, the closing response, but our call to action as well. I would say that it's never more important to be talking about suicide prevention. Sadly, we've seen an increase recently in suicides in Cheshire and Merseyside, after many years of seeing a reduction. And so it's so important that we really continue to talk about suicide prevention and that we take time to listen and reflect, because every single story matters. It is my privilege to welcome our first speaker this morning, Mike from Three Dads Walking. Mike's daughter Beth sadly died by suicide as a teenager. But Mike and the Three Dads have just done amazing work. They've raised over £1 million for Papyrus. And I know Mike as well is really passionate about advocating that we teach in schools about suicide prevention. Over to you, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Ruth. Yes, my story starts in March 2020 when my 17-year-old daughter, Beth, took her own life. It was we were coming into the first week of lockdown. We never saw it coming. I mean, given hindsight, we might have read some of the signs. But Beth was a very talented girl. She was trained to be a singer. She was an amazing dancer, and basically she belonged on stage. She had so many friendship groups. She was always out. She was always doing things. She was always buzzing about. She was a loving daughter. She was a little girl who used to ride on my shoulders, hold my hand. Yet in 2020, everything became too much for her. She took her own life. It, as you can imagine, absolutely shattered me. I became suicidal myself, and it's quite amazing. I'm actually still here telling the story, but I am, and that's an important thing in itself. By fate, I met another two dads, Andy and Tim. Ruth, have we got the slideshow? One back, please, with the picture of the girls. I met two other dads, Andy and Tim, by fate, and you might be aware we became by fate Three Dads Walking, three bereaved dads. And there's a picture of our girls there. Beth is the top left as you look at it, and there's Sophie and Emily. All their stories are very, very different. However, the commonality is they were absolutely loved daughters, loved sisters, loved nieces, in some cases loved aunties. They were loved by everyone, and to lose them is earth-shattering. But as time went on, I started to realize that I had to fight back. I had to refocus. I had to refocus on my family, but also in meeting Andy and Tim, I was starting to learn things. Talking to them was a huge support as well, because they understood exactly where I was, exactly how I felt. We're all very different, but we decided to fight back, if you like. And we wanted to illustrate that suicide was the biggest killer in the UK. We all came from different areas, Andy up in Penrith, myself in Manchester, and Tim out in Norfolk. So we decided to walk 300 miles between our homes. We set off with no other real targets than to raise a few £1,000s for Papyrus, but it turned into an amazing journey of basically learning. You know, no one had ever told us that suicide was the biggest danger to our young people. My Beth certainly didn't know that. And we met so many others who were also bereaved by suicide, and they wanted to know why they'd not been told either. We move to the next slide, please, Ruth. So when we walked, we raised a lot of money, over £500,000. I mean, that is great to do, obviously, to support Papyrus. But also, when we crossed the line, we realised we hadn't finished. We were filled full of righteous indignation. And basically, we realised that we needed to teach our young people how to look after themselves, how to seek behaviour, and indeed talk about their feelings, and indeed reach out. We realised that suicide was encased in stigma, and we realised only by talking about suicide in the right way and how to reach out was the only way to start talking to helping people. So we took it basically to government, Department of Education. So that's a picture of our first trip to London to meet the Secretary of Health and Social Security then, that was Gillian Keegan. We had a great meeting, but as governments go, you know, people change jobs, and Gillian was replaced. But we decided to walk again in 2021. Can I have the next slide, please, Ruth? And a guy called Andy Burnham, you might have heard of him, suggested that we might raise a petition and try and force this through into government. We were hugely successful. We walked this time 600 miles between the capitals of the UK, between the government buildings, and we got 160,000 signatures in the end. Absolutely amazing. It was discussed in Parliament, and now at the end, winding forward, we actually it is being reviewed on the RSHE curriculum, and hopefully we'll get it over the line pretty soon. Our point is, we need to invest in our young people. We need happy, resilient young people, and to teach them how to look after themselves is absolutely paramount. Have the next slide, please, Ruth. So, why is changing the narrative and a call to action to start a conversation so important? We need to support a different way of thinking. We need to smash the stigma. We need to feel relaxed in talking about suicide and our mental health issues. I've seen suicide talk within schools several times now, from years 7 all the way up to 6th form. Kids are not fazed by talking about their mental health. Mental health is a big subject nowadays within themselves. I've seen it taught to them. They interact, they laugh in the lessons, taught well. As I say, it just does not faze them. I've spoken to these kids afterwards, and they're absolutely inspirational. They're the most precious things we have in our life. And by teaching them these skills about talking, about being able to express their feelings, about them knowing where to reach out, you know, it gives them a resilience for the future. And we give them this resilience, they'll be able to thrive in today's world. So a conversation without prejudice is absolutely vital. We should all be able to talk about our feelings. The days are gone where stigma meant that people could not reach out. You know, we need to move on from this. A call to action to start a conversation is so important. It can be a difficult subject, but we all know it can be the difference between life and death. And I think in many cases, when you've actually started the conversation, for example, with a parent to their children, to their child, I think it is actually easier than you think it will be. We are social creatures. We love and care, and losing someone, whether it be family, friend, or colleague, impacts massively. And I believe part of us dies with them. And I can see this obviously within my family and with my friends, with the impact losing Beth has had. Myself, Andy and Tim, as 3 Dads Walking, have walked 3 times now, and we will walk again next year because we believe in what we do. Doing what we do very much gives me a point to carry on. I've had to refocus on my family and 3 Dads Walking. It gives me a point to get out of bed every morning. I believe we make a difference, and we can stop so many families going through the absolute hell of losing a loved one to suicide. And when we walk, we've met many bereaved parents, or people affected by suicide, but some of the most powerful stories we hear are from those who've been in crisis and have in many occasions tried to take their own lives, but now they're living lives they want to. In many cases, they say, we're happy now. It doesn't mean every day is easy, but because they're still with us, their family and friends have them. And that is what we call hope. There, that word again, but it is hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike. I just wanted to say thank you to you for all you are doing, and the other dads as well. It's inspirational. Thank you for being so heartfelt, and I do know that it's making a difference, and we really echo that support around supporting our young people to have the skills to talk about their feelings and to prevent suicide. So thank you very much for taking the time to be with us. I'm going to move on as well, and we have another inspirational speaker. It's my privilege now to welcome Allison. Allison is the founder of Alfie's Squad with her son Alfie, and when they went through their suicide, bereaved by suicide, they recognised there was no peer support for children, and Allison and Alfie decided to do something about it and set up a peer support network. They're now working with over 40 children, and they have an online group across the UK. So I'm going to hand over to Allison now to share her story. Thank you, Allison.
Thanks, Ruth. Morning, everybody. So my name is Allison Furlong, and I am otherwise known as Alfie's mum, to be honest. Can we have our first slide, please? And again, sorry. So Alfie's Squad, we support children and their families who've been bereaved by suicide. We have peer support groups for children who've lost someone to suicide. Our actual in-person group is the only one of its kind in the whole of the UK. At Alfie's Squad, the main aim of it is to reduce the feelings of isolation and improve self-worth in the children and the family members as well that we support. Now, the reason Alfie Squad has come about is because on the 6th of May 2017, my partner, Keith, Alfie's dad, took his own life. As a parent, you don't get any training on what to do when tragedy happens like this. I can still hear the screams that came out of Alfie when I had to tell him. I didn't know how to tell him. I didn't know what to tell him. All I knew is that it was going to be really important that I had to keep him talking. He wasn't allowed to bottle anything in. But I still knew that he had to keep talking to me. Alfie's dad's dad also did the same thing. So as you can probably understand, my fear of that it was going to go on another generation, and I was determined that that wasn't going to happen. So he went back into school. He was, we spoke to the teachers. The school were the first to admit they'd never dealt with anything like this before, so they didn't know what to do. I was told he couldn't have counselling for 6 months because we had to let it sink in, which I do not agree with. So I went against them and sought a counsellor out myself. Now, Alfie was quite emotionally aware at the time, and the first thing he asked his counsellor was, have you ever lost someone the same way that my dad died? And they said no. And so he was like, I can't relate to that person. He wanted to be able to relate to children who had gone through the same thing himself. He wanted friends. He was feeling isolated. We lost many friends. There's people I was speaking to every day I've not spoken to since the day Keith died because they haven't contacted me. We'd have parents phoning saying, oh, can Alfie come round and play? But please don't, make sure Alfie doesn't tell my child what's happened to the dad. So I'd refuse to let them. So Alfie wanted friends. He wanted people that understood. So I had to look online for any peer support groups for suicide, and there was nothing in the whole of the country. So Alfie decided he was going to step up and sort it out himself. So he started fundraising, mostly by making other people do things for him. He's had people jumping out of planes, abseiling down buildings and everything, but he's raised about £80,000, and he has set up the group. He's decided what happens in it. He has spread awareness, and after 5 years of fundraising, the group actually launched in August of last year, 2023. Can I have the next slide, please? So there's Alfie on day one. waiting for people to come. It was really nerve-wracking time because we thought, what if no one comes? What if it's only us that think this is needed? But people soon started walking through the door, and as you can see on the right, this was taken a few weeks ago. We actually now support over 40 families, so it's coming up to 50 children in the in-person group, and we have between 10 and 15 on the online group. And what we found is that the children, when they came in the first couple of weeks, they wouldn't speak to each other. They were all very shy and very sad. But they soon realised that they weren't the only ones going through this. We had a couple of children who actually said to their guardian coming home after the first session, we're not the only ones, are we, that have gone through this? And I think that really helps with them understanding that it's not their fault. The worst thing that the emotions Alfie felt when he lost his dad was isolation, and also he lost all his self-worth. He thought, well, I mustn't have been a good enough child, otherwise why would my dad have chosen to leave me? And that is a feeling felt with any child that loses someone to suicide. It probably with adults as well. Now, the theme of this year is changing the narrative, and I did have like a big list of things to write, but I'm just going to go through it from the heart here, because I fully believe that children who have been bereaved by suicide need support as they are growing up. The fact that we're the only group in the whole of the UK specifically for children bereaved by suicide is crazy to me. You know, the children growing up before this group thinking that they're the only ones going through it, thinking that it's their fault, and then people wonder why the rates of children bereaved by suicide going on to attempt their own life are so high. And I strongly believe it's this. By setting up Alfie's squad, these children have got a safe space to talk about their feelings if they want to, or just to make friends. We have them do different activities every week. They've done Brazilian drumming, balloon modelling. We've even thrown them in with sharks for fundraising. So they're doing things that so-called normal children don't necessarily get to do, and it just makes them feel worthwhile again. And you know, it's not their fault. We've also got the group for the parents. Now, there are many support groups for adults bereaved by suicide, but unfortunately not many of them are very accessible, because if you've lost your partner to suicide, who's going to mind the children? And there's a lot of guilt associated with going to get help and leaving your child with someone else while you go and access that help. So we have our group on in a different room, and it works both ways, because the children can relax knowing their mums are happy and getting support, and the adults are obviously over the fact the children are smiling again. We found that school attendances have gone up. We found that children start to socialise again, and they're talking about what's happened and how they feel, which is really, really important. That's why I think we do need to speak out. If you know someone who has been bereaved by suicide, don't ignore them. Don't ignore the subject. They might not even want to talk about it, but you need to make sure that people know that you're there, and encourage them if they want to talk about their feelings. It shouldn't be something to be ashamed of. You know, it's not our fault what has happened, and by all working together, hopefully we can improve, you know, what is just an awful situation that people and families go through. I'm going to leave you with a little video now that Alfie did for us last night about this year's theme. He's 15, so he's a bit mumbly, but at least we got some sentences formed in this. So if you can just bear with me for a minute, and we'll just get the video up for you.
Hi, I'm Alfie, and this is Dave. September the 10th is World Suicide Prevention Day, and this year's theme is changing the narrative. So I'm here to tell you how my organisation, Alfie Squad, helps to change the narrative. When I was 8 years old, my dad took his own life. I felt isolated, alone, and had no self-worth. I blamed myself massively and thought that if I was a better child, then I could have done something to help prevent what happened with my dad. Now, I obviously know that this is wrong. A high percentage of children bereaved by suicide end up attempting to take their own life when they're older. I didn't want to be a statistic. When I lost my dad, I started fundraising to create a support group for children in my situation. We raised over £80,000, and last year the group fully set up. Now we went from only 6 members in August of last year to over 40, which for a first year of an organisation is very impressive. The purpose of Alfie Squad is to reduce isolation, improve self-worth, and make sure that every child knows that they don't have to go through this alone. Alfie Squad hopes to change the narrative by showing these children that what happens is never their fault, and offering them a safe place and a safe environment to enjoy themselves, while also giving them a chance to relax and make new friends. If you're a child or young person who's gone through a similar situation, Just know it's never your fault, and we're always here to help you if you ever need. Just don't feel free to contact us through our social media or through our website. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alison and Alfie and Dave as well. Thank you so much just for what you've done, Alfie and Alison, in terms of noticing that there was a gap and deciding to do something about it. And even though it took a few years to get there, I love your tenacity of keeping going and to make this happen. And it just amazes me that somehow we've not got the courage, and there seems to be some barriers in terms of us setting up services to support children. And I'm so thankful for what you've done to address that gap. I'm now wanting to welcome Brittney Scott from our own Lived Experience Network. I'm personally very grateful for the Lived Experience Network because they've helped us write our strategy. They help us to keep accountable as professionals in what we're doing and give us honest and real feedback. And also just for the creativity, some of them have shared design work, poems and pictures and other things, and I'm just so grateful for the support of our Lived Experience Network and for their input in everything that we do in Cheshire and Merseyside. So I'm now going to hand it over to Brittney. Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me. It's a privilege and it's my first time doing anything like this. I've had difficulties with my mental health since I was very young. I was known to CAMHS and other agencies from probably around age 4. But when I was 17, I went to my GP with symptoms of what I thought to be depression. Between the age of 18 to 22, I had multiple suicide attempts. My mental health was declining and I felt really hopeless. My family were my main protective factor, but that wasn't enough all of the time. However, now at 25, I'm mostly loving life and things are loads better. I'm really glad that I'm still here. And in recent years, I've been diagnosed with autism and ADHD. And getting that treated and understood helped me massively. It wasn't an easy journey to get to where I am. I faced a lot of stigma and negative experiences, which made it a lot harder to access help. And I think it lengthened a lot of my struggles. Despite negative experiences, so I was frequently told that I didn't meet the threshold for services or I was too risky for other services. One psychiatrist told me that I'd grow out of my problems and didn't see me again. I was told that I was attention seeking, I was selfish, I was childish, I didn't want to get better. I was told I couldn't be struggling as I had a job, I had a house, I had a mortgage, I didn't have a learning disability, and I didn't misuse substances. In 2021, I graduated from university with a first-class social work degree, and I was genuinely proud of myself. I started working as a social worker, but my struggles didn't just go away. Due to my mental health, a mental health nurse at my GP surgery raised a safeguarding referral. And ultimately, long story short, it resulted in a Social Work England, who was my regulatory body, investigating my fitness to practice. And due to that, I lost my job. This made me feel even worse and more hopeless. On one occasion, when I was suicidal, the police placed me on a Section 136 of the Mental Health Act for my own safety. During this, I resisted. I was really overwhelmed and I didn't mean to hurt anyone, but I was struggling with being touched and was engaging with the police. Subsequently to this, I was charged with assault, and this conviction stays with me to this day. Despite negative experiences, I have met some amazing professionals and services whom I'm very grateful for. I received 12 months of intense DBT therapy on the NHS, and this was a life-saving intervention for me. I built a really good rapport with staff from my community mental health team who got to know me really well. A crisis cafe opened in my local area, and that provides non-clinical out-of-hours crisis mental health support, and they've got a peer support worker that works during the week, and their support has been invaluable. Professionals have put me on medication that works for me, and I still take this and attend follow-ups. I've also accessed emotional support and listening ears from voluntary helplines, and I've got amazing friends and family. I've got an understanding GPs, and some of the GPs in my area have mental health nurses attached to them. Knowing you have someone to talk to and turn to who's genuine and listen has made a massive difference. I've also been able to access kind of like mutual aid support, like dropping charities and non-profit organisations. However, a lot of these haven't always been accessible because most of the time I've worked 9 to 5 and there's not as many services that are available in the evenings or weekends. As my mental health started to improve, a peer support worker from Sefton Crisis Cafe encouraged me to get involved with the Lived Experience Network. And I knew that I wanted to prevent others going through what I did and share my story and generally do anything I could to shape mental health services for the better, because there is some amazing services and professionals out there. Working in mental health became a passion of mine, and I currently work within the Greater Manchester Mental Health Trust in their addiction sector. The work that the Lived Experience Network does is very much needed, and I'm really grateful for it. It really does have service user voice at the heart of it. Hopefully, by people like myself and others sharing their stories, people can recognise both the positive and negative experiences, and this can shape the future of mental health services. Suicidal thoughts are really, really common, and everyone has mental health. Suicidal thoughts for me were really scary, but I genuinely do believe that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And that's everything I have to say.
Bethany, thank you so much for what you've shared today, especially because this is, I think, the first time you've done this in this platform, and you did amazingly well. Just to share so bravely, so honestly, and tell your story. And you were honest about the barriers that you've experienced, but also about the professionals that helped, and just the importance of people listening and caring. And I think that's a theme that's been picked up in the calls to action. Some of the things that I can see that people have put in the call to action, people are saying that they're going to change the language and just talk, and actually saying we're going to talk about suicide. We're going to overcome those myths. People are saying they're going to be an advocate for suicide prevention and speak about it widely, to share it. People are saying, I'm going to share about today. I'm going to share my experiences. Somebody has said, I really just wanted to mention Matthew Atkinson by name. I saw what you put in the chat about your dad, very brave, and thank you for putting that in, and for what you're going to do as well, and just wanting to talk that and being positive and making a difference. And that's the ethos that we have today. Others have talked about just sharing love and compassion and reaching out to others. And I think that might be the thing, if I could encourage everyone today to maybe just take a moment to appreciate someone, just to remind somebody actually you're loved and you're cared about. And that's definitely something I'm going to do today. People have talked about practical things such as delivering training, looking and making sure they're familiar with the sources of advice and support. Others have put about the importance of mental health support for children and young people, about reaching communities, marginalised communities, and making sure that suicide prevention is accessible for everybody and everybody has a voice. Others have said about sharing their story, and I think people have taken courage from this session today to feel able to share. And I thank you so much for our speakers for having that bravery and encouraging others to do that. And then others have talked about lobbying the government as well. Very privileged as well to welcome Rachel Gilbert, who works for Wirral Mind, but also is the person that looks after the Lived Experience Network and the members thereof. And she's the training manager for Wirral Mind. And I'm going to hand over to Rachel, who is going to read a poem for us. Thank you very much, Rachel.
Thank you, Ruth. Morning, everybody. So this poem is by one of our LEN members, Helen. It's from her experience and her perspectives, and Helen has found a way to express herself and found a voice through art, and has given me her permission for me to share this with you today, and it's my honour to be here today to share this with you. I heard you, by the way, just then. It looks like I didn't. With my 1,000-yard stare, nobody there. Blank, indifferent, baffled, but not deaf, not stupid. I know it looks so much like I'm not there. Checked out, vacant, vague, unaware. Childlike in my helplessness, voiceless. But I'm an open wound quivering, shivering, unsure, afraid. Will your words hold a knife to twist just a little deeper or salt to rub in? You can be the monster in my dreams, the story I tell in 5 years of that doctor, that pastor, that police officer who saw me at my very worst and didn't care. Or you can be the Good Samaritan, the one I remember my whole life, who saw me staring out of empty eyes and said, "There's a person." a person who loves and is loved, who helps and laughs and goes to the aid of beaten strangers in the street, who listens with tender sympathy to stories of loss and hurt, whose mother frets at home, who picks up her friends' kids from school, who reads bedtime stories to her godchildren, a person with a future, full of joy and laughter and meaning. Who do you see when you look at me? At the bottom of my well, where I can only see the stars and want so much to join them. Cold, bright, untouchable. You can't fix me, my life. You see those initials on my file and your heart sinks. And you think you know. But look at me now. Look at me now. Will you hold my hope? Will you wait patiently for my heavy tongue and slow thoughts? Will you listen? Will you? Will you tell me now is not forever? Hold on. Hold on. Will you tell me I have a life worth saving? Will you? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel, and thank you for that beautiful poem as well. What really struck me listening to that is the sense of helplessness and the sense of not being able to express, and yet the desire to have a voice and the need to have a voice, and just the importance of listening and giving hope. And that's something that we can all do, isn't it? Is that we can listen and we can give hope. There's been a lot to digest there this morning already. So we're going to open the chat function. I think if you can get to the next slide for me, that would be great. Next one after that one. Yeah, so I think I will have some reflections towards the end. And I think some of the things that we've heard already this morning, I think when Mike spoke, I was really touched about how beautiful those girls were and how loved they were as well. And just the real need to invest in young people and making sure that young people are able to talk about their feelings and have the support that they need. And I think we've picked up that theme on children and young people as well with what Allison and Alfie shared around just that gap in terms of parents not having training in knowing how to talk to young people and how difficult it is, schools not knowing what to do, and so therefore the importance that we're educating schools. And just the talk, I think, around the sense of isolation and almost a sense of shame, which is just so terrible in our society, that people feel a sense of shame. And we absolutely must overcome that kind of stigma to give people a voice, to know that people are valued, to know that people aren't alone. And I think it really struck me that real stories of some people just not understanding, creating distance, and we absolutely need to overcome that. And I think in terms of what Rachel was sharing was just that very honest, that when you're going through that sense of pain and the helplessness and are needing to just have patience and to really take the time to listen and to hear and to talk about the fact that there is hope. And because I think sometimes people don't realize how valued they are, how loved they are, and that actually there is hope in the future. And I think that's the real message that we want to get through, that we can work through even very difficult circumstances together. So I'm now just going to encourage you in terms of what you've heard so far this morning. What's your call to action? What's the thing that you're thinking to do to just keep this agenda right at the forefront of individuals and communities and organisations? My call to action personally, and I will put it in the chat, is that I'm going to go and be speaking to systems leaders, again, just to keep and make sure that suicide prevention stays on the agenda. But can I encourage you to now put your thoughts in the chat around what your call to action is, and indeed any reflections from this morning. So I believe the chat function is now open. So I know somebody's put a question in the chat for Alison. I don't know, Alison, if you want to answer that now, or if we want to come back to that later. Some questions, just to say, if we can't answer them now, we will send a response to you post this meeting.
Yeah, I can take that one now. We have a children's counsellor who will triage anyone that comes to us, so they don't just come to the group off their own back. They have an online counselling session first, just to make sure that they are aware of what Alfie Squad is, and they will also have a conversation with their guardian beforehand to make sure that the child knows to an age appropriate level what has actually happened. Now, when we're actually at the group, we have 2 wellbeing practitioners who have worked in schools for many years. They're both counsellors as well. And what we do, we have these cards, so the children bring them every week. I don't know, you might be able to see them. So they come in a little packet, and they have, I don't want to talk, I would like to talk, and I'm not sure. And when they come in at the beginning of the session, they hand whichever card they want to our practitioners, so they will then focus on them if they want to have a wellbeing chat with them. So that's how we do. But we also have people like myself that help facilitate when we do activities as well.
Great, thank you very much, Alison. I think, Mike, there's a question for you as well. I don't know if you're happy to take that now or later, which was just about how kind of getting schools to engage and anything that you've learned or gleaned in terms of supporting that.
Yeah. Some schools are very proactive, as we know. Getting suicide prevention on the school's curriculum is part of standardising it across the board. But I think schools have to realise, and I think I spend a lot of my life talking to teachers and other school staff and people linked to children's mental health within schools, and I think we need to concentrate far more on children's mental health, well-being, and have suicide prevention as a line, if you like, that every child should cross, so they have those skills. But basically, I think that academic qualifications are worth nothing if you don't have a happy, resilient young person to be able to use them. So yeah, it's about education, it's about awareness, isn't it? But I think with what we're doing with the Department of Education and things like the MAPS project that John Moores University is running out at the moment, trial in Cheshire and Merseyside, you know, I think schools will take notice, and I think it makes sense. So yes.
It's a wonderful project as well that we've got through Liverpool John Moores University.
Yeah.
We're trialling a project now where we are doing those things about talking about suicide in schools and teaching and training both the staff and young people about what to do. And so we'll be looking forward to be able to share those results. And so far it's been going down very, very well. I think there is one person who's got their hand up. I'm not sure if we're able to.
There's a question from Jane Harvey.
Okay.
Do you see a limit as to how we come? Our intention is to go to every region in the UK if possible. We currently have John Moores University carrying out a research paper for us on how Alfie Squad reduces social isolation in children bereaved by suicide. So we're hoping when that's completed, we can then sort of calculate how much we can be saving the NHS going forward with what we're doing. Because even though we're classed as suicide bereavement, I think it was Neil actually that said to me, we're actually suicide prevention as well, because we're trying to stop this cycle from repeating itself. Alfie does, he'd go worldwide if he could. He goes to school and says to me before he leaves, oh, can you sort opening one out in Newcastle for me today? So he's desperate to get out as far as he can. And that's why we've done the online group as an interim. Until we can expand, we have the online group, and we do have children from all across the country attending that.
Just wanted to give you a couple of updates as well. So just to mention that there's a lot of work going on in the background as well to support this work, and we continue our endeavours, and we would really welcome your support across the region to continue to promote this work. We are replacing our No More Suicides website shortly, and we're going to be having a new website for professionals working in this field, and in general for teachers and everybody else as well, just so that people have the resources. And there'll be loads of information there on self-harm and suicide prevention, and there's going to be toolkits and all sorts of helpful tools and resources there for professionals. So I just wanted to highlight that we've got this amazing resource across Cheshire and Merseyside. Next slide, please. Okay, this one just gives you an example of what the website page will look like, and it's got our strategy on there and the action plan. So there's already some resources on there in terms of things that people can access. Next slide, please. I'm glad somebody's looking forward to the website. We've just seen it in the chat. Just to know as well, we've done a lot of campaigns, and I do want to just say a massive thank you to the CHAMP support team for supporting today and all their background work on suicide prevention. And we've been doing a lot around Kind to Your Mind, and we've recently been reviewing our work on suicide prevention, and we just know that grassroots, that we talked today just about making sure that people are talking, and self-care and having hope. And so we are, as well as our campaigns, we're actually going to be having a new Kind to Your Mind website where there'll be absolutely loads of resources. So please look out for that. We're going to be launching that on World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October. So again, and that'll just be for anyone and everyone, and it'll just be a source. All sources of information and support will be available on that website. On the next slide, please. So you can see what the website will look like, and this is what I love about this. It talks about mental health support and resources tailored for you, and so there'll be lots of options on there where people can get that different options. And I'm just seeing as well that people are saying a huge thank you for today and for the different training and support that is available. And so I'm hoping these resources that we've been developing together will be really helpful for everyone as well. Next slide, please. So this is just, I'm going to leave this on the screen just for a moment. So I know if anybody has been affected by what we've talked about today, and just for your own information as well, please make sure you know about these things. The grassroots suicide prevention app, Staying Alive, everyone should have that on their telephone. We've got the Shout, we've got Calm, we've got NHS 111. We have our local crisis lines, and the link is there. So we've got 24/7 crisis lines across Cheshire and Merseyside. We've got the Samaritan's Papyrus, and of course Amparo for those bereaved by suicide as well. And we've heard about Alfie Squad as well today. Just in summing up, I just wanted to say thank. I think there's a few people just saying their thank yous in the chat. If I could just bring up our last slide as well. Just here, we're going to just say, in terms of attending the event, we've really appreciated everybody's input and everybody taking part in that chat function. Comments or questions that we haven't picked up, we will endeavour to get you a response. So we have your contact details or through this as well. So we will respond. And I know that people are seeing that. I think there's a few comments coming in through about the NHS 111. I think is going live nationally. I think we're doing some work on that locally as well. So it's good to see that that's mental health, same parity as physical health on there as well. Just to say as well, just a reminder, if you haven't shared our hashtag, could you please share our hashtag, which is Suicide Prevention CM. Just a reminder that our recording will be available after today's event. And so please would you look out for that. And one thing we would be extremely grateful to you for would be as well if you would fill in our post-event survey. So we're going to be sending that out through our emails as well. And we would really value your feedback. We want these sessions to be as helpful as we possibly can. So we would really value your feedback on today's survey. And I know our speakers already are seeing what's in the chat, and it's been just brilliant to have your support this morning. I think I would like to say a special thank you to the CHAMP support team for organising this event. And I think that it's just been really well done, and I'm just so thankful to all the speakers today who have been so brave in sharing their stories, and also for their courage to do something about it. And I hope that's been inspirational to you. It has been for me, that we can all do something, and what we might do is different because we each bring something different, but we can all do something. And so thank you for your call to action. And I think that's us saying goodbye, and stay safe. Thank you.